Welcome to another edition of Encountering the Divine. I pray things are going very well with you. In the Northern Hemisphere here, we are enjoying summer, and it's just amazing, those long evenings and just warm summer days. So I trust things are well, in not only in the physical realm, but in the spiritual realm, where you are as we enter into this summer season. Well, we're going to cover an entire epistle today. We don't normally do that in one session. We normally carve the thing up in several sessions. But 3 John is a very short one-chapter epistle. And basically the big idea of this epistle is walking or living the truth, living in the truth. How do we live out truth? And it's strong internal evidence to the structure, the tone, the style of writing, that it is John, the beloved apostle, the one who wrote the fourth book of the Gospels, the final Gospel, who also wrote the book of Revelation and 1st and 2nd John. And now we come to this third very brief epistle. The way he ended the gospel the epistle is a strong evidence that it certainly is the same author that wrote 2nd John. Ends in the very same way. And we won't get into all the evidence for that. The recipient is Gaius. It seems like he's a faithful, beloved Christian brother. And so John is writing to him. His purpose is primarily to commend Gaius for his hospitality, how he has just the way he lives life into his ministry is enhancing the gospel mission, but also to warn against a particular character, Diotrephes. That is not a name we use every day, Diotrephes. And so we will talk about Diotrephes as we get into it today. The tone is very pastoral, but yet it has this urgent undertone as John needs to write to deal with what's going on there with this particular character and how he is creating struggle for Gaius. So let's dive right in. Let's read the first 4 verses. And as we read the first 4 verses, and I'm reading again from the English Standard Version. I left my beloved Bible sitting home this morning. I had to grab one of my other versions here, so give me a minute to find the... Okay, here we are. Okay, first 4 verses. To the elder, to the beloved Gaius, whom I love in truth. Beloved, I pray that all may go well with you, and that you may be in good health, as it goes well with your soul. For I rejoiced greatly when the brothers came and testified to your truth, as indeed you are walking in the truth. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children are walking in the truth. Wow. Here, this idea of truth is just not doctrinal. Truth for John is much more than a doctrinal statement. It's not just about dogma. It's the very it sets the tone, it sets the atmosphere for all authentic relationships. And we see this through all of John's writings, both the Gospel of John, 1st, 2nd, 3rd John. Everything is about this idea of love and truth really married together. And so John doesn't just frame love here in terms of feelings or sentiments, but rather he links it to the pursuit of divine truth. In John 17:7, he said, he quotes Jesus' words, Jesus' prayers, sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth, Jesus said. In Zechariah, we go back to Old Testament, minor prophet Zechariah, chapter 8, verses 16, 17, we see here the prophet, God by the Spirit through the prophet links truth justice and peace as the foundations of community integrity. No real authentic community can function, can exist without truth and justice and peace as its foundational elements. And so, in other words, truth, where truth doesn't exist, there is no real possibility for authentic love. And this is what John is getting at here. He's just wrapping these two amazing concepts together in this greeting. And so he wants to recognize that. Now, verse 2, we talk about truth in verse 1, 3 and 4. Verse 2, he kind of intersects something here. He says, "Beloved, I pray that all may go well with you, that you may be good in health as well as you are in soul." It seems as if, and we get implied here, that maybe Gaius is struggling physically and having some physical issues. So John recognizes, wow, this man's soul is intact, but his health is struggling. And so this brings us to this Hebraic philosophy that God restores not only the soul, but the body, soul, and spirit. The trichotomy of humankind is part of the redemption that Christ has provided for us. And so there's a Psalm 103. I thought immediately about that as I'm reading this, because it almost seems as if John may have been thinking about that as he was writing as well. And I want to leave it with you. Psalm 103, verses 1 to 5, the psalmist wrote, "Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me. Bless his holy name. Bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all its benefits, who forgives all your iniquities, who heals all your diseases, who redeems your life from the pit, who crowns you with steadfast love and mercy, who satisfies you with good so that your youth is renewed like the eagles." And to me, John has summarized this entire 5 verses of Psalm 103 and packed it in here with this statement when he says, to his beloved elder Gaius, he says, "I pray that all may go well with you and that it may be good in your health as well as in your soul." Gregory Nazian from the Oration 2, one of the church fathers, he cautioned pastors to treat bodily suffering as a shadow of the soul's pain. And so pointing to the need for layered care. In other words, when we're talking to people, don't just treat them as spiritual entities. Don't just, as pastors, and I think that's what we see being portrayed here through John. He's concerned about the church. He's concerned about spiritual matters. But he also wants to recognize, as he addresses Gaius, his physical needs as well. And, sometimes we treat people as a means to an end. And those of us who are very missional, very driven, we sometimes cross that line where, we're more about, getting people to show up, to do the task. We're task-oriented, get the task done, achieve the mission, move it forward. And sometimes we can forget that we're dealing with humans. We're dealing with people who have other needs. And so I like the fact here that when John addresses Gaius, he doesn't only drive for his spiritual ambition here. He needs to address some pretty heavy stuff. But he also pauses at verse 2 to acknowledge that Gaius is more than just, filling a spiritual leader's role. He also is a human being. He has human needs. He has physical needs. And so just think for a moment, who's in your circle today? That maybe you haven't really paused to say, hey, you know what? Some of the struggles in that relationship, some of the things that's going on here, he's a human being. I need to pay attention to that. Now, we put a lot here, couldn't we? We're gonna rush past this. Let's go to verse 5 and pick it up. This time goes so fast in this time. Beloved, it's a faithful thing you do in all your effort for these brothers, strangers as they are, who testified to your love before the church. You do well to send them on their journey in a manner worthy of God, for they have gone out for the sake of the name, accepting nothing from the Gentiles. Therefore, we ought to support people like these, that we may be fellow workers for the truth. Here, John focuses on this hospitality that Gaius is known for, that this particular maybe church, house church or group of house churches or whatever, we don't know all the details around Gaius's role or how big his influence is, but John acknowledges that it's a faithful thing that you're doing in all your efforts for the brothers, the strangers that you're receiving, the people you're taking care of. Radical hospitality was the hallmark of the early church. They were known for that. And Hebrews 13:2 talks about that, Romans 12:13. I could list an whole host of scriptures where we see time and time again where they were so generous to one another. And itinerant ministries or traveling missionaries and traveling evangelists and teachers, they were often unpaid. And they were rejected by the pagans. So they were 100% dependent on the generosity of Christians. But that also led to another problem. It led to abuse. And so, here, we see the teachings of the Didache. The Didache, it was that teaching of the 12 apostles, that document, the kinds we glean information from, that kind of gives us, it's extra biblical, but it's a document that helps us understand some of the rules and guidelines and practices of the early church. And from that, in the Didache 11 to 13, there was established guidelines for traveling apostles and teachers and ministers, missionaries. And there was guidelines laid out for them. And so they were to test these individuals, support those that were true, reject those that were not, because there were abusers. There was those who would take advantage of their generosity. Ignatius of Antioch urged the churches to receive the bearer of truth as you would receive the Lord himself. So authentic teachers, authentic missionaries, those who were genuine, they were to be respected as if you were entertaining Jesus. John elevates hospitality to divine partnership. He says, fellow workers for the truth. Hosting is just not kindness. You're a kingdom co-laborer. And that's a reminder for us as well. Although people are not as dependent today, maybe churches pay their staff, evangelists and missionaries raise funds, and we have other ways of taking care of people for the most part. But in certain parts of the world, even those of you viewing me today from third world countries, as a large part of my audience is there, you know how vital it is. And we support missionaries in Nepal, and they live this life. They are dependent upon the generosity of the church. They don't have the financial means, or very meager financial means, to provide support for themselves. And here, John recognizes this as, wow, you are to be commended for your generosity. Then he raises this issue. So he talks about his health. He encourages him. He commends him on all these fronts. And then he says, verse 9, let's go pick it up. I've written something to the church, but Diotrephes, who likes to put himself first, does not acknowledge our authority. So if I come, I will bring up what he is doing, talking wicked nonsense against us. And not content with that, he refuses to welcome the brothers and also stops those who wants to and puts them out of the church. This is one of the earliest records we have of abuse of power in the church, where someone in a particular local constituency refuses to acknowledge the authority that's over them. And Diotrephes rejects the apostate letters. he slanders spiritual authority, and he even excommunicates those who don't agree with him. This character is portrayed as a man who is driven by selfish ambition and a desire for preeminence in the church. And so he only will allow within his cohort those who are subservient to him and to him alone. That is dangerous. If you are serving under a leader who exemplifies these characteristics, oh, I encourage you to run, run, run. You are being set up for danger. Here, this text here echoes Numbers 16, where Korah versus Moses, rejecting God's chosen leadership, and it leads to judgment. As I sat with this text, I searched my own soul and said, Lord, am I exemplifying any of these characteristics? Because if I am, I sincerely repent and help me do this right. Help me acknowledge. I may not have to jump 4 feet high every time one of my district advisors or someone speaks, but I sure have to be very careful that I am not opposing the spirit of what they are doing, and I am welcoming, warm, receiving, sitting before the Lord on every point, ensuring that I am not just trying to get around me a group of people who would just agree with me. And that's a dangerous place to get in. It's a precarious place. It's a dangerous place to get in. Diotrephes had gotten there. How he had gotten there, I don't know. One of the things we know, those of us in leadership, people who have insecurities are the most dangerous people you can have around you. Maybe it was a very insecure person. And so as a result of it, insecure people clear the decks. They don't want anyone who in any way can shine better than they do in certain areas. And so Jerome, in letters 52.3, he says he laments Diotrephes as an early prototype of bishops who love the chair more than the truth. Tertullian viewed him as the seed of a bishop gone rogue, when authority lacks accountability. And here's what they're dealing with in this particular church. And so John goes on then in verse 11, as we need to wrap up soon, to say, Beloveds, do not imitate evil, but imitate good. Whoever does good is from God. Whoever does evil has not seen God. So here John points out the fact that those who pursue good, they are reflecting the nature of God, who is good. But those who pursue evil, they're disconnected from the divine presence. They're disconnected from the source of life. John talks about that in 1 John 3, verse 6 as well. So our ethics reflects our intimacy with God. You cannot live outside of that. You live out of intimacy with God. If you live outside of intimacy with God, your ethics will not align. And so early Christians understood that the goal of the Spirit's work within their lives was to enable them to become like God through grace. Anastasius said, God became man, that man might become God-like, not God. Man won't become God. Man won't become a demigod, but so that we can reflect the nature of God. And so Peter talks about to imitate good in 2 Peter chapter 1, verse 4. To imitate good is to participate in the divine nature. And Diotrephes is doing anything but that here in the way that he is his leadership model. Then he goes on in verse 12, and he brings in a new character. Demetrius has received a good testimony from everyone and from truth itself. we also add our testimony, and you know that our testimony is true. Now, Demetrius is possibly the courier, the one who was bearing the letter, the one who was bringing the letter with him. And here he receives a threefold commendation from John. Or John, not necessarily from John, but from three sources. He says he has a good reputation with others. From truth itself, wow, testifies to the goodness of this man. In other words, his life aligns with truth. We see it. And then he says, and he has a good testimony, and we know. So his testimony is from us, from me. I know this man to be a good man. So Diotrephes, he has a threefold witness: rejection and slander and exclusion. Demetrius has a threefold affirmation: truthfulness and reception. And you know, so we see this here, how this is contrasted. How one is contrasted against another. Demetrius is a man with a good spirit, a pure spirit, a one who pursues truth, a one who lives truth. Diotrephes, on the other end, is one who was selfish, ambition, driven to position and power and control. And so here, you know, John wants us to recognize that we need to identify the true servants within the body, and we need to honor them. We need to be generous toward them. We need to be hospitable to them. We need to care for them. But there are those who we're not obligated to offer that kind of love and compassion for, because they don't testify, their life does not testify to truth. And that in itself is that's where the decision is made, on that basis alone. Then he wraps up. So verse 13, 14, 15, I had much to write to you, but I would rather not write with pen and ink. I hope to see you soon, and we will talk face to face. Peace be to you. The friends greet you. Greet the friends, each by name. I love that. Greet them by name. You know, take time to recognize who they are as individuals. What a pastoral presence, what a pastor's heart is here. And so a closing is an echo of 2 John. It's almost the same as this closing in 2 John. He says, spiritual correspondence is essential. I have to do this. It's so important that we have something to you right now. But presence matters most. Don't just get used to sitting at a desk, typing out emails and sending texts and doing messenger and engaging in social media. That's all important. It needs to be done. But ensure that you take the time to go by the hospital bed, to lay a hand on someone, to give them a gentle touch on the shoulder, to pray for them, to be present. Truth is incarnated, not just discussed. It's not just something to sit around tables and debate. No, true truth is embodied. And the early church embodied truth. It was incarnational. They recognized that. And so, you know, John talks about that in his first gospel. The Word became flesh. You know, so here again, authentic discipleship is incarnational. And so I leave you with that today. Be authentic. Be incarnational in your walk today with others, with those around you, with the Lord, those the Lord has placed under your leadership, those the Lord has placed within your court of influence. And that, I think, is a good place to land as we wrap up 3 John. Well, we have now covered 3 of John's epistles, and next time we will dive into Jude. We're going to spend some time with Jude. All different. We've spent a lot of time with Paul. We spent now some time with John. Now we're going to have some time with Jude. It's amazing to come together, see how all these apostles work together, their ideas and concepts and the way they do life so integrated. God bless you. Have a wonderful week.